Hi, good morning. My name is Patricia Woodfill, and it's July 10th, 2024, and we are in Lockwood, California to have a conversation with Lester Patterson, Pam Davis, and Barbara Koester about their memories of growing up in Lockwood, California and the surrounding area where they were raised. Also present are our camera person, Maria Weinerth, and Lester's wife, Dawn. We are having this conversation on behalf of the San Antonio Valley Historical Association, SAVHA. So first, I'm going to ask Lester to state your full name, and for the record, please spell your last name.
Patterson, P-A-T-T-E-R-S-O-N.
Thank you. And Pam, would you please state your full name for the record and spell your last name?
Pamela Rebecca Patterson Davis, and Davis, D-A-V-I-S.
Thank you. And lastly, Barbara, would you please state your full name for the record and spell your last name?
Barbara Elsie Patterson Koester, K-O-E-S-T-E-R.
Thank you. Each of you, what is the date and place of your birth, including the hospital or place where you were born? We'll start with Lester.
I was born April 4th, 1957, in Patterson at the Memorial Hospital up on the hill.
And the one up on the hill?
Right,
Oh, okay.
that was War Memorial? isn't
War
that what-
Memorial.
It's not there now, I don't think.
April 7th.
What
And
did
Pam?
they say?
I was born in Tascadero. It was the only hospital in the area. King City was more of a nursing home, so I was born in the Tascadero and came home to the ranch and the house where I lived.
And what
And I was
date
born,
and year was
I was
that?
born in March in 1947.
And how about you, Barbara?
I was born July 17th, 1953 in Paso Robles, California, at the old hospital.
Old
War
hospital.
Memorial, right?
What do you mean the old hospital?
It's War Memorial.
Huh?
War Memorial.
War
War
Memorial.
Memorial Hospital.
Oh, good, okay. Because when you say the old hospital, there was a new one later
Well,
on?
she's talking to me.
Well, Templeton,
Oh, I
you know,
see, okay.
right? So, yeah, in Paso Robles, there was a hospital up on the hill.
Oh, yeah. All right, good, thank you. Okay, I want to make sure that we have permission to use this recording to educate people about our local history. So, do we have your permission to share this information
Yeah.
with others in history and to post the video on SAVHA's YouTube channel?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Lester, what are the full names and origins of your parents? And, okay, yeah, just give us the names of your parents.
Well,
and their
my
origins.
dad was Floyd Lester Patterson Jr. And in the origin, he was born in the house, I believe, up there that he passed away in. He died in the house he lived in his entire life. And then my mother, Jessie Lee Patterson, which was a Wolf, which was her maiden name, the German Wolf, W-O-L-F-F. And she was born where, you said?
Stockton, August
Stockton.
1926.
And that was your mother or grandmother?
My mother.
Actually,
Yeah.
my mother was raised in Stockton for a while, but she was born in San Luis Obispo. And she was raised in Stockton.
Oh, and what year was that again?
She was born in 1926.
1926. So, when did they settle in this area? Pam, why don't you answer for us, when your parents?
Well, first of all, my dad was always here on the ranch, was born in the house where I lived, and it was called the Dilly Place. And so, my dad was born there and was here on the ranch. Later, my grandparents, they lived in the Dilly house. They bought the Dilly Place and remodeled the house. And my grandparents, Barbara and Floyd Sr., moved into that home. That was their first home. And then later years, my grandparents moved here to this house, the adobe. And when my dad, Lester and Jesse, Floyd Jr., Lester they called him, they moved into the Dilly house and lived their entire married life in that home. We're just a mile away from here.
A mile away from this
Yeah,
house.
and they lived there. Jesse came from Stockton, met Lester. My grandparents, the Wolves, had a place over here, the Gill place now. And that's how Lester and Jesse met.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They came down here, and then a friend, Bev, came too, and she married Lonzo Woods.
She come from Stockton to
Are
see
they
her
partners with?
her dad, and then while she was visiting for the summer, that's how she met my dad. Just across the road right here.
And they married,
Did you have something to add to
No,
that,
no,
Barbara?
she's-
No?
and they had married in Stockton in 1945, October 1945.
And that was your parents?
My parents. yeah.
Jesse and Lester?
And then they were here at the ranch, lived in the Dilly place the whole time.
Yeah. Where is that, Dillon?
It's called, it was
Dilly.
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 And
Dilly.
it's a mile away from here. It's the home where my folks lived, Lester and Jesse.
Dilly, Dilly.
Supposedly it was, before Grandpa had bought it, it was a fire department, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That's what I
Cal
heard.
Fire, I believe, had
For a short time.
for a short time. And they took the wood from the Bradley School, the old Bradley School, and remodeled the house.
Oh, wow. Do you know what year that was at that,
It was right
Trying to
after,
think of when they got
right after
married.
it burned. I don't know.
when they moved to this farmhouse, didn't Lester, your father, build this adobe?
No, my
No?
great-grandfather,
Great-grandfather?
B.F. Patterson, Benjamin Franklin Patterson,
Okay,
built this one.
okay.
And the original homestead was over here about 50 yards away, and it burned down in 1890s, somewhere late 1890s.
1899.
Anyways, and then they started this house in 1890, well actually 1896 is what it says, but I don't know, and finished it in 1900, this house here. And there was no running water at the time,
Mhm.
and they had the bunkhouse across the way was built, and that's when they had hired men come in. We had 2 20-mule teams, and they would do the farming, and there was anywhere from 8 to 15 guys working there, and my grandmother and my great-grandmother and aunts would all help cook and feed them in wood stoves at that time.
Wow.
So it
There's a
was,
lot of history in this
yeah.
area. So that, yeah, that's this, that's when your parents settled in this area. What about your grandparents? Did you mention
And my
what your,
great-grandparents,
when they
we're 6
se-
generations on this ranch, 6 generations.
6 generations?
So we date back, what you just said when BF come down here was in 1884, 83,
It-
supposedly.
1884, and he lived with the Gillettes for a short time. He followed Blair here. There were 11 children from Joshua and Catherine Patterson, and they came to Oregon, Ashland, Oregon, and they had 11 children, and 4 of those children came here to Lockwood. Blair was the first, Benjamin was the second.
And they moved it to Oregon, Ashland, Oregon, but where were their origins?
Ohio.
Ohio,
Ohio,
and
they
from
come-
there is their
came
ancestry?
They came from Ohio and Indiana, and they,
Late
yeah,
1850s.
by wagon train with oxen.
And I still have the whip in the other room from John Patterson when the oxen's coming across. And they come across the Applegate Trail, which they all come into, what do you call it, the Baker, the Oregon Trail, Baker, Oregon, and then from there it's split 3 ways, and they come across on, we call the Applegate Trail, and that was ended up in Ashland. And then from Ashland, they worked their way down here, and like she says, 4 of them eventually come down here, and then later some of the, I think 2 other brothers come down later and work for Randolph Hearst. So
So they, okay, that.
I think the original house in Ashland is still there, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
And before when they arrived in this country. What was their,
Oh, well, on my dad's side, I mean, we're Irish and German, so,
Irish and German?
Yeah.
Okay.
so,
Yeah.
and my mom was German and Jewish. What else she had in her, I don't know. We got a little bit of
A
everything.
little bit Indian.
When she was little, her grandfather would take care of her, and she didn't know much but German. They spoke, her and her sister spoke German.
Oh. So, I know you've shared a little bit of history of your family, but Barbara, do you have any really fond memories of your parents and growing up here in this house?
Well, this house, apparently they must have met here regularly at this house. The home department, it was a thing that all the ladies in the valley would get together once a month. And somebody would come and speak, like the home extension would come and speak and stuff. And then they'd have dessert and coffee, and I do remember the little crystal plates that they had, you put on your lap and the cup sits on it.
Uh-huh.
And
You're still downstairs.
yeah, we still have those, but was it anywhere else? I remember it being mainly here all the time.
No, Irma Saylor would have
Most
it.
of it was,
Yeah.
most of your
Yeah.
memories are
Yeah.
from the Dilly house.
And the Heinsons would have
Well,
it.
and then
Well, actually, we
Martinez,
spent,
what's her name,
May.
May Martinez, she had it one time, I remember one time she had it, I mean, it was around, but most of the time it was her.
yeah, most of the time, and then,
Soil conservation was her room.
and then there's, and remember going out to the harvester, Mom would take, lunch for the guys working on the harvesters and stuff, you know.
And that's when you were little?
Yeah, that's when we were little, and I'm trying to think. I know the holidays were really special. The whole family got together, and of course, my aunt had 6 kids, and Mom had 5. So when we all got together around this table for a holiday,
Well,
it
go
was
clear in
full.
there and then go around the corner.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Those are fond memories that you have.
Right, yeah, so,
Yeah.
and I never got to meet my grandmother. My grandmother had passed away a couple of months before I was born.
Oh.
Our step-grandmother, though, which was Ella
Ella
Taft.
Taft Patterson.
Yeah.
My grandfather remarried, and then she lived in, so a lot of our memories are all of her.
Yeah.
And even after he died, she remained in this house.
Oh.
She was a hell of a cook.
What about you, Pam? What fond memories do you have of your parents and growing up?
Besides your brother.
A lot of it, like Barbara said, the holidays are actually family gatherings, but we had a lot of company, in mostly family, but people would come, especially in the summertime. And I can remember having barbecues and eating outside in the summertime. And we had a huge barbecue pit. First it was underground, and then my dad finally built a bigger one, but it was nothing to cook a half a lamb on a weekend and we had so much fun. Or a whole, and we ate a lot of lamb. But those were fond memories, and the people come, and then hunting season where people would come, and that's when the cabin was built. And
The cabin, the cabin?
the cabin on the ranch here now belongs to Lester and Dawn, but it was smaller at the time, and it was put there so we could go out there, and they had picnic tables, and the family could meet out there, and we had a lot of uncles and cousins that would come and hunt.
Is that where it gets its name, the hunting cabin?
Yes.
Is what you're
The
talking
Buckner's
about?
Cabin.
Yeah.
It's called the Buckner's Cabin. And we used to spend, in the summer, I'm not joking, I bet you, every day the family would all gather, everybody would bring something and we would eat,
The whole season, yeah.
especially during hunting season.
Well, it
But
started out that before they had the cabin, well, there was a cabin there before that was kind of like a line shack, but it was there for years. And it was just about, what was it, 10 by 14 or something? And then we kept adding on and adding on. And of course, the county didn't like it, but anyways, everybody would be down at my mom's for years, and dove season, there'd be 100 people show up down there, and my mom cooked and everything for it. And then deer season come around, same thing. So my mom says, this is enough. We're building the cabin down there, and you guys can all go down there. You can drink, shoot, do whatever you want, tell your jokes, but I can't do any more cooking. So that thing has just got bigger and bigger over the years, and then we've had close to 500 people there, barbecues and stuff.
Really?
Oh, yeah,
And
it's,
Dutch ovens and.
Where would they all come from?
A lot of family and friends.
Just family and friends in area,
Yeah.
King City, Paso Robles,
Family
or
from
even further?
Stockton, Soledad.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they just knew there was gonna be a party, so they'd
Yeah,
show
pretty
up.
much every weekend.
Or just have, they,
and we used to say we were built into the dish pan because we washed so many dishes when we were younger. It was, it got, because they didn't use paper plates back then, you know?
no, they didn't. That's a
So-
good thing.
So it's, at the time, it was just mainly family thing at that time, but it's grown now. We use it for hunter safety courses, and we teach hunter safety, and then we also do the concealed weapons classes down there now. And then when we're branding cattle, we use it. We do it, we're using for the Dutch oven, turnout for the museum. And we still, some weddings now and then, that's of course illegal with the county, but,
Yeah. Well,
don't charge them.
Yeah, I know Pam, you mentioned something about you always had a lamb that you would barbecue in the ground.
We raised sheep, pork, and beef, but it was easier for lamb. We cooked all of it, but mostly a lot of lamb. It was easy to go get a lamb.
How many?
She had about 300 ewes, or my
How many
dad
now?
and her together.
Was there that many?
You know,
About 150, I thought.
yeah,
Well, I was
so,
wanting to count the lambs.
but we raised them. My dad had sheep, mostly Corriedales. And then my uncle lived in Soledad, and he had an almond orchard, due Tankersley. And he had to get rid of the sheep, so he asked if I wanted them. Of course, I was 4-H, and I was able to buy his ewes, and I was raising ewes, mostly south down. And, yeah, so,
Great. Oh, those are good stories. So, what were the names of your other brothers and sisters, or did you have?
yeah, we had 2 more sisters. Janelle, I'm the oldest, and then there was Janelle, and she was born in 1949. And then there was Rebecca, and she was born in 1962, and they both have passed away.
And were there other relatives living nearby? You mentioned that friends and family. I mean, what about in this
Well,
area, close by?
At one
cousins?
time, 50% of the people in the valley were related to it, if not more.
You were
If you go
related
back,
to everybody.
I mean, it goes,
Yeah,
and
that's the way it is.
a
in
lot of
this
them don't want to talk about it, but yeah, it's
No, my
So-
great-grandmother married a sailor, so
sailor.
we're
double
entwined
related.
with the
Brother,
sailors.
sister, married brother, sister on the sailor side. So, and that's how we got double related with
Yeah.
the sailors.
What, yeah, when you mentioned my grandmother married a sailor, it's not a sailor in the Navy. She married the sailor,
Sailor,
S-A-Y.
Yeah,
Viola Saylor was the daughter of J.B. Saylor from Hesperia, and she married Benjamin Franklin Patterson, who homesteaded this.
Oh, so that's sailor.
That's how the sailors brought us together here.
Yeah, back in the day, they didn't have that many people close by, so they kind
you
of.
didn't go to town very, and that was the joke when Henry Roth got married and my dad. They both went out of town to get married, and they said no one ever left Lockwood to get married. So it was kind of a joke. But
Same
it's
way.
Well, I mean, back in those days that you didn't travel very far, you know, buggy and horse, you didn't go very far to meet somebody. So they married more or less within their areas. And Bryson, Hesperia,
Well,
my grandfather went over to the coast, after harvest, they would take the wagon and go over and camp at the San Simeon,
How did they?
and that's how they
what-
met my
What
grandmother.
road did they take to go to San Simeon? Through Paso or?
Through the hills.
How did-
hills.
what-
Are you talking about great-grandfather? Which one are you talking about?
Grandpa when he met grandma.
Which one? Great-grandfather or your
Floyd,
grandfather?
Senior Floyd.
Oh, well, yeah, they would have to go over, which would be, if you're talking, going to, it would be, what do you call it, Cayucas, or not Cayucas, Cambria. Cambria, so they would go over towards Hearst and over the, we call, that's called,
Was it
Red
Nancy?
Grade, and
Oh,
it
the
drops
Red
right
Grade
in by the
Road.
Hearst Castle and goes north there. And, anyways.
Yeah, that was before the Nasmino Ferguson
No,
Road.
that road went into
Yeah.
way later than that. As a matter of fact, and Valmadate used to talk about it too, when people at the time would ship eggs and stuff over to the ship. They would take turns driving over there and going to San Simeon Bay and dropping in the ship, and then the stuff would go to Frisco, the stuff they wanted to ship, is what
Yeah.
I understand. And,
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that we're just kind of like over the hill to like Hearst Castle or,
yeah,
you know,
only 20, what,
Yeah.
8 miles?
but
by
as
the
crow
crow flies,
flies,
yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, there was no roads out.
My grandmother, Barbara Wilkinson, her mother used to work and cook here at the ranch. My great-grandma Viola Sailor Patterson was not well all the time, so one of the brothers, Fred Patterson, came from Oregon, Talon, Oregon, and Ashland, excuse me, and he came down here and helped cook. Well, he later moved to Aptos, but my great-grandmother, Alfie Wilkinson, married Ori Sailor, which was Viola's sister, or brother, Viola's brother, and she used to cook here, so she had a daughter, Barbara, and then Floyd fought in World War I, and when he came back, Barbara and Floyd got married. And so that's how they were here at the ranch.
Grandpa
So
Wilkinson.
there again, it twines again.
Yeah.
So Grandpa Wilkinson, Mike was his name, wasn't it?
Michael Wilkinson.
Michael Wilkinson. Anyways, he was the bartender down at Plato, then the old town of Plato, which is underwater. And then on the sailor side was the first postmaster there was Joe Sailor, right, Joe, who lied about his age at 16 to go back to the Civil War and then come back. And he delivered the mail to the Manchester, which was the gold town, over by Hearst. Anyways, there was The Salt of the Earth, if you read that book, it was one he took to, I can't think of her name now, she was going to be a nurse over there and ended up marrying one of the Crinkles. Maud, was it Maud or Mary? I gotta read it again, but anyways, but he was the first postmaster over there. And then Larry Patterson was the first postmaster in Lockwood, and he's the one that changed the name from Hungry Flats, what the Indians said that the white man would starve to death, which most of them did, and anyways, changed it to Belleville Lockwood, which you know the story of that one.
Yeah,
So,
that's
anyways.
the story.
So and the first post office was actually where Frank Gillette used to live, where it's just across from the post office now, the old Gillette house. Which actually Donnie was telling me at one time that's where Lair was homesteaded, and supposedly the Gillettes and Lair traded property or something later on in years, and we got that, how they got that piece of property.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
yeah.
I'm glad you brought up that Laird Patterson, the postmaster, was that was in the
1888 is when he
right?
wrote a letter to Congress,
Right.
asked them to change it, and they changed it for him to Bella, to Lockwood, after Bella Lockwood,
Right.
which was the first woman to ever, this is how I understand the story, you probably know better than I do, because you researched it, that was actually a legal woman to run for president,
Right,
as a congresswoman or something,
that's
yeah.
it. Yeah, and that's how Lockwood got his name. And we're sticking to it.
Yeah. No, anyways, that was in 1988, so I don't know, it if he was postmaster 2 or 3 years before that one, before they even had a post office, I don't know.
Yeah. And I wonder, I've always wondered, you know, you mentioned that he took the mail over up to Manchester, I
That
guess
was
you
Joe
could say.
Sager,
That was it.
Joe.
I wonder if they
JB's
did that weekly or monthly, or did, it
You know,
wouldn't be
I-
daily, because that's a
Well,
long
they couldn't,
ride.
it couldn't make it back and forth.
Yeah.
No.
And they would use the Mel Trail, which is, we call the Mel Trail, which is going over to Manchester.
Yeah.
And it goes to Hunter Liggett and up and over. And I used to grade up on top where it come in at, and it, you could still see certain areas where the trail used to go to, where they took the mules and stuff to cross into Manchester.
Oh,
So,
that's so interesting. I know that the town of Manchester burned,
Yeah.
like in the cone fire,
that was
wasn't it?
72
or something
somewhere
like
in there,
that.
yeah.
And, that's too bad, you know, that little town isn't still there. There's a lot of history in that
Yeah.
area, tied with this area. They
It
were,
was
Or,
pretty steep
yeah.
area. so
Yeah.
I was like,
And I think
a lot of gold in them there hills.
Eric Reinstaff's dad wrote the book, researched it out about the gold mines, the lost mines of the Manchester. And after the fire, a year or two, there was no brush there, no trees, everything was
Right.
just bare. And you could see all the holes, the mines where
Oh.
they were. Yeah, and anybody who
Now
reads
it's all-
that book, it's very interesting. It's only 100 pages, about half of them are pictures, but it's very interesting.
I'll have to get that book.
Yeah. Lost, the ghost mines of Monterey or some, the gold mines,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Gold mines,
And,
Monterey County.
Yeah, at one time it was gonna be the county seat, and one didn't even have a road into it, but that's where all the money, there was more money made there than anywhere else in Monterey
Well,
County.
that's an
This
interesting
was
fact.
gonna
I
be the
didn't know
county
that.
seat, and then it got voted down by a couple of votes, of course, back then they had a whole lot of people vote. But, it was quite a town, the way you read that
Yeah,
book,
I know.
from what I hear. yeah.
Well, Lockwood, you know, there's so much history in this area that, you know, and you have lived it your whole lives,
Yeah, I
you
just,
know? And, you know, we talk for hours on
oh, I
that.
could go for that,
So
and
much.
I might have been perfect on all my dates and stuff like that, but I remember when I was a little kid, always with my grandfather or my dad. And, history,
Yeah. I
we
know.
go with the Wallisons, and Lomer's always like those kids, that we'd be talking for hours, they tell me the history. And then you go down to Haynes Valley,
Right,
and then the Bodie Reavers.
yeah.
Oh my God, he could talk for, and they were the last ones to use horses in the valley and mules. And, so that's how I got a lot of history, because I always,
Right.
my dad always hung around with
Well, and
them.
that's, we'll get into how, that's why you started the museum, and
Right.
we'll talk about that, but first I'd like to go back to you and what it was like growing up here, and where did you go to school? Pam, you probably started first. What,
We went to school at the San Antonio Union School, which is
Uh-huh.
now the Hardin Center.
yeah,
And I started school there. There wasn't kindergarten, I started first grade. But my,
do you remember? Starting?
yeah, oh, yeah. Well, I don't remember starting, but
Oh, okay,
I remember more in later years.
later there.
My grandmother, Barbara
Uh-huh.
Patterson, she went to school there. My dad, my aunt, Leslie, and they went to school there. My grandfather went to the main school here. But anyway, I went to
Down
The
school.
main school was
It was
where?
right
Just
down
across
here.
the street.
Oh, that,
Yeah, so but I went to school there all 8 years, and we had 3 rooms. So there was first and second, third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth, eighth, seventh, and
Yeah.
eighth. And so it was pretty.
and Lester, you also went to school there.
Yeah, the whole family. I was, they closed it like 4 or 5 years after I left,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
after I graduated. And probably 1972 when I graduated, so
Yeah.
probably 77 or so is when they shut it and built a new school. But yeah, I went to school there, got a lot of good memories. Yeah,
Rebecca's the only one that went to school at both places.
Oh, wow.
She-
And you, Barbara, you went to school at that old?
I went to-
We call it the old school.
The old school, the Harding Center,
Yeah.
the community center, and we did not have a kindergarten.
No.
It started
No,
first
no.
grade.
I don't know
And
that we ever had
There's
a
first,
kindergarten.
second, and third, and
I
then
think later years.
fourth, fifth, I think, and sixth, and then seventh and eighth.
Yeah. What is
Because
your-
the superintendent at that time was also a teacher, so he had.
Do you remember
two-
his name? The
Which one?
teacher, the superintendent who was
Holmes.
the teacher?
Well, there was
Holmes,
Holmes
and then there was Jernigan, and then there was Mr.
Lester,
Lester, and then,
and
I mean, it changed every 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
and it was
A lot of
them.
people, a lot of
Yeah.
teachers came and went.
Well, there was only 3 teachers, we had first, second, and third in one, fifth and sixth in one, and seventh and eighth in another.
Yeah, well, Lila Rock, was she ever
Yeah,
any of
yeah,
your
she was,
teacher?
No,
Well-
not when I was.
Substitute.
Well, she was a substitute, but she'd fill in a lot of times.
Philip Holmes
But
was
she
the
was,
principal when
yeah.
I was going.
She was,
when I started, he was too.
she was kind of a relative, but anyways, yeah, she did fill in a lot, but I can remember that school, of course, they would never allow this today, but back then, Blackie Dodd was the mechanic and bus driver.
Yeah.
And then there was Dorothy Hudson and, I could go on quite a bit, and then
Grace.
Pat Ruiz, Grace Ruiz. And I remember one time we broke down and, you know, all being farm kids on there, and we were, of course, we didn't have cell phones, and we were out in the middle of nowhere, so I get out and work on the bus. And I got it going one time, I can't remember what it was, but I got it going, and that was Dorothy Hudson. So I got to school, and another time it broke down, I had to walk about a mile to get to the next ranch so that we could call a landline to call the school. And then one time, I was always in trouble at school. I was
You were always in trouble?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I was real close to all the principals. Anyway, so I spent a lot of time with Bradley, or,
Blackie?
Blackie, out in the shop helping him.
Blackie Dodd.
And so one time, the bus needed a valve job, and Blackie, we had to, as soon as the bus got in, he needed help, so he had told my mom and dad, one of them asked if I could help, because we had to pull the head off and do a valve job and have it ready to go so the kids could go home that night. So
How old were you when
I
that,
think
do
I
you
was
remember?
seventh grade, sixth, seventh grade.
Oh, 7th grade maybe?
Yeah. So,
Wow. So you were a pretty good
I was handing
mechanic
me
even
tools, and
then.
they would do a valve job, well, and I think by lunchtime, we were headed, putting it back together so we could get the kids home before school.
Wow, was it just you and Blackie working on it, or were there
No,
other?
just Blackie and I at that time.
Wow, that's a
Yeah, there was
good
other
story.
kids, I remember Giffy Parlay, he was a
That's
couple.
that's a good memory. Do you have any fond memories of school?
Yeah, there were only 8 of us in my class.
Oh,
When, in the upper grades, and 8 of us graduated from school at that time. There were 4 boys and 4 girls. But I remember, there were only 4 girls, but we played kickball, and it was pretty rough sometimes.
yeah,
With just old country kids, you know,
yeah.
and talk about Blackie Dodd, he was really super with all of us kids. I know sometimes he would take us out, he loved to fish, but he would teach us, we'd take wood pieces and he'd teach us to build boats and stuff and put propellers on them and stuff like that, just like on a break at lunchtime or something like that. He would just like
Yeah, he was
to
a
be,
good guy.
some of us kids go in and build those,
He was a good teacher too.
Oh,
What about
yeah.
you, Barbara?
And his wife,
Millie,
Millie?
Second wife?
Oh,
No,
the
his
first
first
wife.
wife.
Oh, well,
His first wife always made the graduation cakes.
Oh,
As long as she lived, she made those graduation cakes for the graduating class.
oh, that was good.
Yeah, so, and they lived in the Cheatridges up there, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Who were your good friends at school? Did you have?
Well, there,
really
we had Johnny Plaskett, Frankie Raw, Cynthia Merritt, Mark Grindstaff was in there.
Pretty much all your classmates were your really good friends?
Well, yeah, because you live out here, you live too far away really to go see any kids, you
Yeah.
know. The Willoughbys, we used to walk down to the Willoughbys and they'd walk
I
up.
was to visit them. Used to have, the girls, not but I can remember every time we cleaned one of the sheds out or something, the Jardines or us or Willoughbys they would get together and have they call everybody in the valley, all the kids, and then have it, and the moms would cook cookies, and they'd have punch and whatever, and then they'd do a dance. I was on the
Come
smaller
as you
side.
are.
Yeah, we were doing it about once a month. And it'd be somebody else's house, but we'd have a party and all the teenagers, the local teenagers get together and we dance and records and stuff. And that was a lot of fun, a lot of memories. Mom has a ceramic shop, and Dad made this floor, and he put a floor in, but it buckled, and he needed to lay it down, so he says, call your friends, have a party tonight, and then we danced on it to lay the floor down, so he could lay it down. Do you remember that?
I remember.
You mentioned a ceramic shop. Where was that? Here on?
It's up at the place where
My
Oh,
mother,
at the Dilling.
it was just off on the yard there a little bit.
Yeah.
That was her craft.
And
room.
she-
And what did they do at the ceramic shop?
Well, she did ceramics, but she taught ceramics at Hunter Liggett for several years.
Oh.
And she did ceramics and sold them, and she
Yeah.
just liked it for a hobby. My grandmother did that, and then she kind of picked it up from there.
And each type of ceramics was with the molds?
With the
and-
molds, she'd pour the molds, and then she had 2 kilns, and she would do the greenware and clean it up. Or sometimes she'd buy the greenware if she found a piece she liked, and then she'd clean it up, fire it, and then
Yeah.
she'd glaze it and fire it again.
I bet you all have some of those ceramic
Oh, yeah.
pieces of
Oh,
your
yeah.
mom.
Oh, yeah.
We made steins, I've got a bunch of steins.
Yeah,
That's a
great
And when
stories.
I graduated, there was 5 kids in my class, and 3 were my cousins.
They were what?
It's
3 were
with-
my cousins.
Oh,
We used to graduate right out front of the school where the patio is, as you walk out the front door. We used to graduate there, and then some of the classes were a little bigger, they went down to the hall and graduated at the
Oh, and-
old hall, which is now the True
church.
Life Church.
yeah, I remember that Grange Hall. Did you go have a lot of parties there?
The Grange-
We met, 4-H met there, we graduated
Oh, yeah.
there.
Cub Scouts.
But it wasn't a Grange Hall. It
was
was just a
great
It
thing.
was
community.
a Grange Hall, but
We
it
call
was,
it the
was a-
Lockwood Hall, the community
The
hall.
meeting
Yeah, it was
center.
community.
Yeah.
Community center.
The community hall, they call it.
Yeah, oh, they did?
Yeah, but it wasn't a Grange. The Grange Hall was down in Hayes
was it?
Valley.
Right,
It was a Grange Hall, and there was one in San Arno.
It wasn't a Grange Hall.
okay.
It was, but
yeah. Well, I
There's a lot
bet you
of-
all remember the old town of Lockwood there then. Was
I
it
don't-
still there?
No. just-
No, no.
That's the only building that I remember that's still standing there now. And the rest of it's been torn down.
Yeah.
And,
Well, what, was it, now,
Seen pictures of them, but I don't remember mine, maybe Pam
There's a
does.
lot of card
Yeah.
parties and stuff.
where the new school is, across from the
hall.
community hall that you're talking about, before that school was built, there was a house next to it, wasn't that?
That was a Betts, George Betts lived there. Just
Oh, okay,
that
I
little
thought that
house.
was an old school.
Yeah, used
there.
No.
It
No,
was just a little house, it was George Betts lived there.
And the community center, one of their main things they did is every month they would have a card party. And it'd be nothing to have 15 tables.
Pedro?
Pedro,
I know.
because there
That's
was
so
no
fun.
entertainment out
Right.
here, so that was part of the entertainment. But they also used it for soil conservation a couple times, farm something.
it was used for everything in the valley.
Yeah, it was
Just like
everything.
the Hardin Square is now, it was used for everything. That was the main meeting area.
Right.
Until the old school shut down and built a new school, then we made Hardin the community center, then it wasn't used much. And I can remember she's talking about the card parties, my grandfather Floyd, Senior, anyways, he played cards, but he liked it with the kids. So all the kids, everybody bring their kids, and my grandfather would do the Super 8 movie cartoons like the Three Stooges or Abbott and Costello, and there was a bunch of, anyways, he would show the movies for the kids. but sometimes he'd be so loud and they'd be laughing so much at to tell him to be quiet. They got to,
He gets so
there were
tickled.
silent movies, but he would read it and everybody'd be cracking up.
Wow. And that was at the community center that's now
Right.
The hall, which
Grange
is now
High
the
We
Church.
used to have
Now the church.
dances, but everybody always
Yeah.
bought their kids, and they had benches and stuff, and
I like that.
the fires, and so the kids would sleep around the fires.
Oh.
They would bring blankets and stuff, and then the kids would all, same with the Hesperia
Wood
Hall.
eaters, yeah.
And there was, at the time when they had the dances, way before my time. And I don't know if you remember, Carr talked about it a little bit, but Bodie Reberts played the piano by ear, I think. I don't know if you
He never read
remember.
a note. but he
Anyways, and then there
Played by
was,
ear.
what's the one in San Ardo, James, didn't he play? There was 4 or 5 of them that played music at all these dances. They would do it at Hesperia Hall, they'd do it here in Lockwood Hall, and then they go to San Ardo and they do the routes. And actually even in the one on Peachtree, that one, they do the round, everybody would, that's how they had their entertainment, you know? So,
Great. You know, just thought about, you mentioned about the movies. Now, what did they show, what were they used to project, were they projectors?
yeah, the projectors, they got the reels and they go in there, and they got little gears that driven them, and they're Super 8, you know?
Yeah.
Not Super
Regular
8,
8 and Super
Regular
8, yeah.
Regular.
regular 8, they didn't have Super 8.
Sometimes the reels would only be like about 4 inches,
Oh, wow.
and you play, that's the short ones, real short ones.
And now
then-
those were your movie
Yeah.
entertainment.
And then my grandmother took a lot of, I don't know if you've probably seen that movie that was put out by the museum, but they took the reels and connected them,
Yeah.
and they would be the bigger ones, and they'd run them.
And they
My-
had
yeah.
a little bit longer
My
entertainment.
grandmother run those movies, and she put them together.
There's 2 reels, a little reel and then the big reel, and it would wind back on
Some of the
you.
Mission, when they were redoing the Mission, some at Hunter Liggett when 4-H Kids in 1948, 45, 48.
About 48, I was only about a year older.
Yeah, Cookie was in that, Roth. A bunch of them, when Henry and Lila and Ross, everybody had planes at that time. Well, we didn't, but most of everybody in the valley had airplanes. And
Yeah.
they'd have a plane weekend or whatever. Everybody would fly in and they'd do their thing, and I can
Oh,
remember. And that movie, there's the 8mm movie of all the people flying in and
Oh,
over.
I saw that at one of the
Yes.
So,
dinners there. Well, after you, these are wonderful memories that you have, but after you, elementary or early education, where did you continue on the education, go to high school or college or?
We traveled on to King City High School, and
All of us.
all of us went to King City High School. We rode the bus, catch it around 7 in the morning.
Where did you catch the bus?
Well,
Just at the?
we would have to catch it here at the corner for a while,
Oh, okay.
and then but it would go, that was before the Interlake Road, and the high school bus would start back in Bryson, Hesperia, pick up all those kids, come across the river there by Plato, come around. It was a long
dropping
day.
the Bradley.
Yeah.
Drop, the kids, well, Bradley had another bus, but anyway, come around to Plato where the Plato store was, we'd come around up through Lockwood, go up through Malone and back over the grade, and then we started picking up grade school kids at that time, high school and grade school kids, all the way into King City,
Oh,
from after the grade. And then, of course, it was a long ride home. It was,
it was a bus full.
sometimes the bus would stop at Lockwood store, and the kids that had to go clear back to Bryson, it was so long that they'd grab a snack at the store and then start off again. It was a long ride for
Yeah,
those
long-
kids.
Yeah.
And if I'm at 7 o'clock, you can imagine what they were, and we'd meet the bus. In this wintertime, it was dark to dark, you know?
Oh, wow. God. And that, kids don't realize how easy they have it
Yeah.
now, you know, so. What about, did any of you go on to college or?
She went to college.
I went to Hartnell, graduated from Hartnell, and then I went to Poly, but I never graduated.
And you
I went
went,
to Cal Poly for a year, and then that's when my dad had open heart surgery, and then I had to come back and
Had to
Take
go back
over
to
and
work.
help him.
And I went to beauty
Yeah.
college in San Luis Obispo.
Oh, that's good. So, you know, you've told us about some of your memorable school experiences in high school, and do you remember any other businesses when you were going to high school that were in this area? I mean, there was, you know, the town of Lockwood was gone, but there was still the Lockwood, you mentioned Lockwood
Lockwood
store.
store.
Lockwood store was
Who
still
owned
here,
it?
and they had,
Bob
Getzelman,
Getzelman's.
and they had
Up
a,
in Lucille.
they did have a gas at one time, sold fuel.
And then
And
the
then-
post office was connected.
Hello, we had Hello, and they had a little restaurant there. And then we had Play-Doh. Play-Doh was a business there.
Had a business there?
There was a store, just like you see it nowadays.
Yeah, but there weren't any restaurants or any places to go eat or
Well,
anything.
No.
Well, we had Hazel's Drive-In, and I can remember as a young kid, and you guys probably remember more, we'd run, at that time we didn't have, we had the old bobtail trucks where you load the cattle, horses, and the door come down, and we were pain in the butt. So anyways, it was faster for, we'd take the cattle, and we had property down in Haynes Valley, so we'd run the cattle right down the highway, down there, and we'd stop the Hazel Drive-In, which was where North Shore is now, north the restaurant, and she had a little antique, well, it wasn't antique at that time, but now they call them trailers, a little trailer, and she was a little redhead, I can remember, and she only sold hamburgers and I think fries and Coke and beer, that's all you could buy. But you would stop in and we'd get something to eat and then we'd take
Oh,
the
that's
cattle on
good.
down. And I said, you remember those when we used to go down there? Stop there, and that Hazel's Drive-In was in there. And then Play-Doh store, when they shut down Play-Doh, way before my time, when they rebuilt the store up here, because that was underwater. Actually, my grandfather was just kidding one day and said something about, well, this is new Play-Doh, and it's stuck, so today it's still called new Play-Doh. And my grandfather Floyd, he kind of renamed it just jokingly, and it's stuck. So,
Yeah.
new Play-Doh now,
Nuclear.
There was a restaurant at Hello.
yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, Bob Gregory.
Later,
Long had a
later
little
on,
store.
no. It was-
Yeah.
Back in the late-
Ramona
Ramona
had
had
this,
the
yeah,
store
no.
and,
But it was,
Oh,
there was a restaurant there when I was young.
yeah.
Well, we used to, school bus used to pull in there, and we'd all get off and get a candy bar or something, and eat ice cream or something. And go, well, Ramona had it. when we were
Yeah, it was
young.
called the Mission, San Antonio
I
Mission
actually just saw a
Store.
picture at my house.
Then
And
like
I think you
the
guys
restaurant.
have the top of it at SAVHA somewhere. You have the sign that went over the top. Actually had a picture like the mission on it, and,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was, that's in the,
SAVHA, or the,
yeah, the Rural Museum
Right,
in King City.
But then she
Well,
later called it, didn't they call it Ruby Mine or something?
Ruby
Yeah.
Mine.
Ruby
that
Mine
was
later.
that's Bob Gregory had it
Yeah.
then.
No, before him was Green, Ruby Green, because they called it Rubies,
It was
Yeah.
called,
Rubies something,
Ruby Mine.
yeah.
they
Ruby
call it
Mine.
after Ruby Mine, which is Ruby Mine,
Right.
just right up from the Miller
Right.
Ranch. And right up there where they do the
Sad
machine
that
gun
that
range.
whole area is just
Yeah,
gone.
Carol,
you know.
Carol Green's mother-in-law
Right,
used to,
Margaret,
Margaret.
yeah. That's good. So, later on in life, after high school or college, you were married, and when were you married, and how did you meet, what was your husband's name, and how
I
did you
went
meet?
to high school with him, Tim Koester, and we got married in 1973, lived in San Luis Obispo. I was finishing, I had another month of school or something to do, and then he worked for the CDF, which now they call CAL FIRE, but CDF, and he used to travel 3 or 4 hours to go to work up in Northern California area, and then, so of course, back in those days, you work 3 on, 4 off, and 4 on, 3 off, so it wasn't too bad. And then later, a year later, we bought the house in King City, was there for 2 years, and then we bought the house in Lockwood in that's where we've been since.
And how many children did you have and what were their names?
I have 3 kids, Tiffany, Tim Jr., we call him Tucker, and then Josh.
And are they still all in this area or?
Yeah, Tiffany's passed away, but she lived in this area. Matter of fact, she lived in my great-grandparents' house, we call it Graham's, and then they moved, her husband worked for the lake and they moved down there. And then Tim Jr. lives on the Gillette Ranch and Josh lives just below the grade there
Oh, great.
on
And you have
Lansing.
grandchildren? With-
Yeah, Tiffany has 2 children, a boy and a girl, Trey and Jewel, and Tim Jr. has 2, Court and Kylie, and Josh has 2 boys, Chance and Buster.
Oh, a whole nother clan coming on there. And how about you, Pam? Were you married and do you have children?
I was married in, actually, the 3 sisters, Janelle, myself and Barbara got married within a 9-month period. And Jan got married in May. I got married in September of 1972, and she was 73. And I married Lee Davis. He was from Bradley.
Oh,
And I actually worked for him for a short while. He driving truck, harvester,
you drove truck?
a grain truck harvester. He would harvest. I'd take the grain truck in and empty it in the bin and then take it back out to him. And I
Wow.
worked for him for a
Truck
while.
driver Pam.
Yeah.
Well, she used to run the header on the harvester when she was younger.
Yeah, and you were on the
Something like that.
harvester.
So then Lee and I married in September,
We did, he did.
and then
I did the new ones.
so then I have 2 children, Audra, who lived, well, we raised them in the hills of San Arno, we farmed in San Arno. And so I had 2 children, Audra, and she was born in 74, and then Gregory, he was born in 77. And
Oh,
Audra lives in Idaho and Gregory lives in Stanleyville.
great, good. Now how about you, Lester? We know your wife,
Yeah.
Dawn's
Well,
here.
I met Don and actually our family's been friends for generations. We didn't know that until after we almost got married. Anyways,
What was her maiden name?
Wood.
Oh,
So H.A. Woods, welding shop out of Paso.
right.
All the Woodses, she's related to the Wood side. Her dad was a Wood. And she'll come over, she can tell you better than I can. Anyway, so we met in high school, but we didn't start dating until I was going to college.
Oh,
And then, and she was from Margarita when her dad got killed, and then moved up here, and her mom married Faye Ross, which was their neighbor in San
San
Arno,
Arno.
boy.
and farmed. And anyways, that's when Don and she moved up here to go to school, that's how I met her. And then after I graduated, went to college, well then, I would come home and have to work on weekends, and she'd go down to Margarita, so we were
Oh, you
back
were
and forth, so. That was kind of, but we got together and we got married in 1979, January 15th, and she's outside now, but anyways,
Heavy rain.
yeah. So our first Thanksgiving here, we had 25, 30 people, I can't even remember, but anyways, her grandmother come out and helped us, and on the Wood side, and she says, yeah, things don't, that's Alice Wood, she said, things don't change around here much. And Dawn says, well, Grandma, what are you talking about? She says, when I was a little girl, you know, my father worked for V.F. Patterson,
Oh,
so back in the 20s. So, small world, yeah.
yeah. At least you're not cousins.
No, we weren't cousins, we weren't related. No, anyway, so that's how it's done, and we have 3 kids. There's Alicia was the oldest, and she's married to Anthony Hernandez's son,
Jacob.
Jacob. And then they got 2 kids. And then I got Floyd and Patterson, Floyd, Lester Patterson IV. And he's got 1 kid, and that's Tegan. She's working at the lake right now. And Tegan.
Yeah.
And then there's my 3rd one is Cody Patterson, And he actually lives in Alaska right now. And from his first marriage, he's got 2 kids, and Faith and Aisel Patterson. And then from his second marriage, he's got 4 kids there. And there's Tyler, Owen, Blake, and which one am I missing?
Logan.
The twins, actually, we call them
Yeah.
triplets, because Owen's 9 months
almost-
older and they're 3, and we're talking about a handful.
And you didn't say
Wow.
Alicia's children's name.
Oh, I thought I did.
No, not
Eleanor and,
Eleanor and
I can't remember my grandson, I don't get to see
Nate.
very,
Nate.
don't get to see him very often. Anyways,
Wow,
So-
big clan there.
yeah.
And Lester, when you were raising your family, what'd you do for a livelihood?
Well, I was farmed for generations after generations.
Ever and still?
And we're still farming and ranching, mainly cattle and grain farming. And then later on, when after the embargo with the grain with Russia, which this whole valley at one time was all wheat and barley, and Carter put us out of business, so that's when everybody had to do something else, get other jobs somewhere else. And we still raise cattle, but everybody quit farming because there's no money in it. So then I started guiding and hunting then. And and after that, I went to work at Liggett and working for the government as a heavy operator,
Heavy equipment operator out there?
dozers and graders,
And then you recently retired from
I
there?
retired there 4 years ago, 5
Oh,
years ago.
4 years, yeah. Time
Yeah.
goes by fast.
It does. So, anyway, so now
All
we're
right. Good.
retired.
And Pam, we'd mentioned that you were heavy equipment, I mean, you drove harvester and.
That was
is that for-
When we were young,
When we
When you
were
were young.
younger on the ranch,
10 header they
when we were
called.
growing up, in those days, there wasn't any just single push harvesters. We did, we had a pull harvester. My grandfather would drive the tractor, and us girls would take turns on the harvester, tending the header. And this header, you had to move it up and down with the grain. You had to watch, you didn't hit any limbs or rocks, or you didn't get too
Yeah.
much shaft or straw in there so it plugged everything up. So you had to keep moving this. It had a wheel like a captain's wheel, and you have to go up and down and keep it up there. Jan and I did for a while, and then when we went away to school, I'd come home like on Friday, but Barbara worked for several days during the week. And
Oh, wow.
Jan would.
You
do-
all helped out?
So we all helped out. We did chores and stuff. But I worked,
Yeah, for your luck.
Lee and I farmed, and then we had cattle too. And
Oh,
we farmed in the hills of San Ardo,
yeah.
some of the Arandri Ranch up there. And then we had some farming in Hog Canyon, which is out of San Miguel.
You grew
Well, we grew barley,
Arnie.
and we had some cattle. Things got really tough, so we decided to sell the cattle and try and keep farming. Well, that got pretty tough, so we quit farming and we both went to work. I worked in the oil fields in
Oh.
San Ardo. I worked for Mobile Oil as
Oh,
an
great.
oil treating operator.
Uh-huh.
And then in later years, Mobile went together with Shell in California only and made a company called Era, and I worked for Era.
Oh, great.
So I retired in 2014.
Oh, 2014?
Mhm.
Great, you've been retired a while then. How about you, Barbara?
Well, I worked at a beauty shop salon for a while till I got pregnant and I was too sick to work. And then I stayed home most of the time with my kids. And
Which is a big job.
right, well, and then a couple of them had learning disabilities, and I drove to Monterey
Oh,
for them to go to school. We did that for 4 years. And then later on, my daughter owned a flower shop, so I worked for my daughter. So be careful what you say to your kids, because you may end up working for them
yeah,
later.
that was a successful flower shop.
Yeah, and,
Really awesome.
And then when the grandkids came, I stayed home and watched the grandkids, because nowadays both husband and wives have to work. So-
Right, yeah.
So it was easier for grandma to raise the kids
And you
instead of
enjoyed
somebody.
it.
Oh,
You
yes,
loved
oh,
it.
yes, I did.
So, So this, you know, everything, all the memories that you all have, I mean, it's just amazing. You have so much, and I know we could go on for hours, but I wanted to touch on how you got involved with the Nacetone Museum and building that from the nothing to what it is today, which is a really successful and, you know, awesome museum, and that a lot of people enjoy visiting. So Lester, can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, there was a lot of
Well,
work to get that going from the ground up.
We belong to Pioneer Day Parade and Museum in Paso. And our family, actually, the main tractor that runs through there, the prairie schooner, belongs. We had the first gas tractor in the state of California. And we still run it, and it's in the museum in Paso. And that was in, my great-grandfather bought it, and well, I think it got here in 1910, but it was built in 1906. Anyways, there's only 12 of them made of that series. Anyway, so it's down there, and we have the first prairie schooner, which come across the prairie, and we bought it from, which is the Martinez place now. My great-grandfather bought it from Nance, which used it to haul freight to the gold rush days in the 40s, and 1849 or whatever it was. Anyways, it was built in Pennsylvania during the Civil War, and so it had to be after 1959, 1860s, I guess, when it was built, because it was used in Civil War. So when it got out here, then my great-grandfather bought it, and they used it to haul freight back and forth to the railroads and to the mission. And it actually would be here, and they would go up to like the mission and Halone, and they mainly, everybody had wheat. When they would load their wheat up, come back here, and then they haul it down to Bradley to the railroad, and then they would load up stuff they need there, and then bring it back, and then they would, whatever they had, might go to Plato, might go to Lockwood,
Yeah.
might go, and they would bring it, and then they go back with grain. And it took them all day from here to Bradley to back, and tractor to pull all 3 wagons, and it took all day. Now we're doing 12 minutes. But anyways, so those are we got involved with the Pioneer Day Committee in the 30s, the family had, because they wanted to use the tractor and the prairie schooner, so, which are the 2 oldest things there, and it's got the only original wooden axle, still from Ironwood, from
And
Pennsylvania.
that's
in the museum down there at Paso.
in Paso Robles.
Right. So anyways, my dad is,
Wasn't Nacetone a name that came?
well,
I was-
I'm getting to that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so they were involved with that, and then my dad got my cousin, well, in fact, I call him my uncle, Clarence, involved in down there, and then Calvert Sailor got involved in it. So they always were talking that we ought to open our own, museum, we got it, the same thing everybody else has got, and do our own. Well, they said that for years, but no one ever did anything. So after Clarence passed away, and then my dad, and then, so I tell Calvert, I said, we gotta do something, we either do it or we're not gonna do it, you know? I said that was a wish, so that was my dad's kind of wishes, he wanted still. That's why we donated the property, got it started, and I knew we couldn't do it by ourselves, that's why we got the community involved, and everybody wanted to do it, and it's been up and down. It took 11 years to get the county to let us build on it, because we weren't zoned, we were in the Williams Act, we weren't zoned, so I had to change different properties for it, and to get it out of the Williams Act, we got, then had to rezone it. And then it took several years after that to get all the permits, and it's just been an ongoing
Yeah.
fight.
How did
A
it
lot of work.
how did it get Nacetone name?
Okay, so the Nacetone, actually Susan Oliver, I think it was Susan Oliver that come up with it. No, she come up with the other statement. I can't remember, I think we had a contest.
Well, they used to be soil
Soil
conservation.
conservation was the main thing in Lockwood with all the farmers. They'd come out, and they still do, but it's a government agency. They would help you put ditches in, or things to revert to water, or how to help you plant, whatever. So they help there. But there was one here in Lockwood, which was called the San Antonio, and then they had one in Bryson, which was called the Nacimiento one, out of the rivers. So we got together, we decided to what are we gonna name it? And I can't remember exactly what we come up with the
They
name.
used to have the Nassau Soil Conservation.
So what they did, they merged it and called it Nassatone. Nassamino, San Antonio, the Nassatone,
Right.
from the two rivers and the two government agencies called it Nassatone. So they made it one. And so later on, there is none anymore. The government's still doing it, but there's no more. They don't have any equipment or any of that. They just give you an engineer and they tell you how to do stuff. And, but anyways, so they decided to call it the Nassatone because this is the area that we're trying to save, all the way from the Nassamino to San Antonio,
Right.
all the way to Watershed, all the way to Bradley, from Randolphhurst, all that area is what we call it. So they decided to call it the Nassatone Interpreter Center.
Yeah.
And
And
that's-
I know you said that why don't we build our own museum, but I mean, what really, you just wanted a place
Well,
for everybody to.
my dad and my uncle, they wanted, that's history,
We have a lot of history stuff that they wanted to put out.
to save
For the
the
public.
history of this valley.
Some of it,
That
what was
wasn't-
happening too, was a lot of it, if we didn't do something, a lot of this equipment or things, books or what, little pieces even, yeah,
Gone.
were gonna be gone, people were gonna forget and just throw them, or it's like, our kids would inherit them, but they'd say, well, we don't know this. Some of them would, but anyway, they were gonna lose this, and the farm equipment and stuff, they were taking it and just melting it down, scrap metal.
Yeah.
And so if we didn't do something to bring this stuff together, it was gonna be gone.
And there's a lot of that stuff, is a lot of history in it, and each piece of equipment, which means a lot, because especially if you're born and raised here, you know who had it, what they used it for. And every time a piece of property is bought here, there's stuff that was on the ranch, well, it's garbage, it's junk,
Yeah.
it's scrap metal,
Yeah.
and a lot of that, there's a lot of history, and that's some of the history. And then not only that, but we got one little building, we had to fight to get that up with the county anyways, and we try to get as much as we can in there. We got an archive room where we're starting, she's working on that, and to put a lot of the pictures and stuff in there, and to save what history we can on it. And then when we first started, I knew we had to do something, and we weren't making progress, we weren't, and I said something to the Indians, and oh yeah, they were interested, and nothing happened, never happened. And then finally, we got a couple of them on board to be it, because once you get to the state, on the county side of the state, oh, you got the Indians, okay, they need a place, so that they kind of joined us and helped, and so it made it good, and that helped us, because they weren't getting nowhere, they didn't care, the
You
state.
had worked together.
Well, they're part of
Yeah.
our history here
Right,
anyway.
right.
Well, they are in history, I mean,
Several
more.
more
And
directors.
you're talking about the Salinan Indians.
Salinan Indians, yes.
Yeah,
So,
they have a lot of history that is
Right.
being displayed in the
the
museum.
museum, yes.
I hope a lot of people who watch this will come out and go to the museum. It's open, what day is it open, Pam?
It's the first Saturday of every month.
Right.
From 10
And
o'clock.
there's a lot of
10 to 4.
activities and fundraisers and things like that, and I hope that,
And if somebody
people-
wants to come, anytime they ought to do is just call us and we go open it
Yeah.
up for them.
oh, that's good,
yeah.
like if they want,
Yeah, just
I know
give
you
us a
opened
call.
it up,
One of the directors will go up and open it
yeah,
and take you
for
a tour.
the San Antonio Valley Historical Association, you opened it up so we could have one of our spring tours there, and everyone loved that, it was a great thing.
Yeah.
Well, I just really appreciate all of you, the three of you coming together and sharing all your memories, but is there anything else that you would like to share with us before we close today?
We can go on forever.
Yeah, we could go on.
We really could go
There is a
on.
lot of stuff, but
I
a
know,
lot of
go
his,
forever.
a lot of
Just-
history and stuff
Yeah,
that we.
I know you
to
do,
tell.
and I hope that you record it,
We'll have-
after today,
Yeah.
continue on recording your history, because it's really important. Your family is a major part of this valley, and the San Antonio Valley, we really appreciate you coming together for us today.
Well, thank you,
And I
thanking
wanna
of us,
thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.